The case of two New York City police officers accused of rape is highlighting possible loopholes in some states' legal systems. The 19-year-old victim, who goes by the alias Anna Chambers, says she was taken into custody for drug possession after a traffic stop last September. That's when she claims the two plainclothes detectives repeatedly sexually assaulted her inside an undercover NYPD van.
It's very sad that it's police officers that did this. I don't know. They're supposed to protect and serve, right?
Well, after the incident, Chambers did go to the hospital where DNA matching the suspects was obtained. The officers have been indicted on charges including kidnapping and rape. They pleaded not guilty and claim that the act was consensual. So for more on this case, we're going to turn to Vinoo Varghese. He's a criminal defense lawyer and a former prosecutor. So this is a very interesting case that I think a lot of people are unaware of. It is illegal for a prison guard to have sex with a prisoner. But the idea is that the dynamic is different when we're talking about a police officer and somebody that they pulled over or arrested.
In New York, there's no law expressly prohibiting police officers from having sex with somebody that's under arrest. However, that's not a license to rape.
Right.
So that's why these officers are actually charged with rape. The bigger issue here, though, is about power, right? Power tends to corrupt. Absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. Mm-hmm. So for anyone who's pulled over by the police, it's sort of like as if like Black Panther and Killmonger were stopping you at the same time and asking you whether you'd consent to have sex. They don't have the power, and that's clear. The reality is, though, 35 states in this country do not have a law expressly prohibiting police officers from having sex with prisoners. But of course, they can be charged with rape, and that's what's happened here. The other issue here is that these police officers were narcotics detectives. They were part of a unit that just a decade ago had come under fire for paying informants with drugs. In this day and age, now with drugs and we're heading towards legalization of marijuana in most states, why is this still a thing, as John Oliver would say on his show? Right?
So, but they're saying that it was consensual. Is consent a legal possibility in this sort of situation? It's not.
It is.
It is.
It is because of this loophole.
It is because what they're saying is that this was voluntary. You know, the DA has a problem here. They have 50 counts against these police officers. 31 of these counts are misdemeanors. I have a copy of the indictment here. 31 of the counts charge official misconduct, sexual misconduct, sexual abuse. These are all misdemeanors. But the most telling thing in this indictment is that the police officers are also charged with receiving a bribe. So the defense lawyers have been screaming, which is it? Did they force themselves on this woman, or did she offer herself? Did she offer sex in return to let her go? And that's bribery. I don't think the DA can have it both ways, and that's what the defense lawyers are screaming here.
You know, we talked about the difference between a prison guard and a prisoner situation. Is it that under the law, and you can clarify if I'm wrong, that a prisoner is sort of in the custody, in the care of the state. The state is responsible for that prisoner or the federal government, versus when you're under arrest, the law enforcement entity is not in the care of you, is not responsible for you. Is that sort of the legal difference?
I don't think it's that, it's that defined. Again, just because there's no law saying that a prisoner can't consent doesn't mean that gives the police officers a license to rape. The issue here is that, well, let me take a step back. Governor Cuomo, in response to this case, is proposing legislation to close this so-called loophole.
Yeah, because it seems like, why do you need a law? It seems like this should be obvious.
Obviously, I agree. The problem with his proposal is that a traffic stop is not considered being in custody. The courts have ruled repeatedly that when police officers stop you at a traffic stop, you're not in custody. That's why they don't have to read you Miranda rights when you're stopped at a traffic stop. When a police officer asks you whether you've been drinking or not, the answer to that can be very incriminating. However, the U.S. Supreme Court said that this is not custody. So there's going to be a loophole within this law to close this so-called loophole.
Because the power dynamic is certainly there when you get pulled over, even whether or not you're going to be charged.
I mean, it seems seems like, you know, commonsensical, but I guess, you know, sometimes it's not as obvious as perhaps people who are not well versed in the law would assume. But as a former prosecutor, do you think that these cops are going down? I think that's what everybody wants to know. If this woman is saying she was raped, are these guys going to go down?
I think they'll go down for official misconduct, because here's the
that's
issue.
not. I mean,
But
that's
not
like
for
that's
sexual
just
assault.
mind blowing.
Yeah.
I mean,
They'll go down for official misconduct. They may go down for rape, but the issue here is that this woman, this is, you know, DAs, prosecutors fiercely protect the people that they call victims, right? This woman is out on TV. You just saw her.
Yes.
I mean,
I was
I've never
surprised when
seen
we said
this.
she has seen them, but we were showing her face.
I've never
so.
seen this, and she's on Twitter bragging about how much money she's going to make from this case.
Ooh,
so
gosh,
the
this is
defense
getting
lawyers,
messy.
you know, this case started with a personal injury lawyer making noise about this.
Huh.
Right? She did go to the hospital. She did get the rape kit, but it was the personal injury lawyer who pushed the DA here.
All right, so wait, let's take a step back and just ask this. If it turns out, as the cops are suggesting, because whenever you know, in this day and age, when the tendency is you want to believe women, right? Because when they say somebody has done something to them, you know, the reflex now is we should at least believe them. But
And Vlad, she did the right thing. She went to the hospital.
directly to the hospital,
you
right?
know?
And they conducted a DNA test and found that those cops' DNAs were on her. The question, I guess, then becomes.
But not
If
on the handcuffs.
Not on the handcuffs, right?
So she's saying she was handcuffed and
Right.
down, but there was no DNA.
So that was my question.
Yeah.
So if it turns out that she offered sex up for releasing her or not charging her or not arresting her, and they accepted it, then they could go down for accepting a bribe.
Correct.
Right? But then what happens to her in that case? Nothing?
Nothing.
Offering a bribe to police officers
That's not
against the
illegal?
law?
Well, it's not likely the DA is going to prosecute.
Yeah.
I can tell you, there's no
But
way they're going to prosecute her.
but again,
but the point
this
is
costs
that-
money. This is this is not cheap for the city to try a case like this. Why wouldn't you want to say, look, you can't do this if you
No,
you know,
because
you should-
if she was in prison and they were guards, even if she consented,
Right.
it would be illegal. You just can't do that.
So they'll look at it from the greater evil. What's
Yeah.
worse, her offering a bribe or them accepting it?
Really interesting.
Yeah,
case.
that is really
Very
interesting.
interesting.
Vinoo Varghese, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up in just a